Good morning. It is good to see you. Good to be back with you. I'm really excited because this morning begins what we're going to be a part of for the next 4 weeks, is looking at some of the most important and heartfelt aspects of who we are as the Meeting House. Over the next 4 weeks, you're going to hear about some elements to what we believe is most vital for us as people and followers of Jesus to come together and follow after him. About 10 years ago, maybe more than that, a friend of mine suggested to me an app where I could consolidate a whole bunch of news sources all together. And it was not just like political news, but news about anything. All my interests and everything were found on this one app, and so it includes all this stuff. Well, I found a part in it over the years. I've just come to make a mental note that this seems like the life optimization part of the app. It's all those pieces of information that are gathered that help you or tell you how to optimize your life. Now, not all of it has been consistent, I will tell you that. I read one day that you should not eat eggs. And then I read you should eat eggs. And then I read stay away from eggs. I'm here to declare today, eggs are of the Lord. And you should enjoy eggs regularly, right? Yes. I was reading that you should optimize the amount of water you take a day. And so the one report said 64 ounces a day. And then another one said, figure out how much you weigh and then divide that in half and how many ounces of water you should drink a day. And I thought for sure they wanted me waterboarded. Beyond that, the amount of times you go to the bathroom, if you take that seriously, you get nothing done. I've determined that. I have a staff member that I think does that on purpose somewhere. We have all these ways of thinking. You should get 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. I wish I heard. Right? That's how much sleep you should get. Then there was the confusion around how many miles your car gets until you need an oil change. It was 5,000. That's what I thought it was, 5,000. And then I realized that someone said, no. Actually, with the new oils, the synthetics, you only need it every 10,000. And I think I know some people that say, I have lifetime oil. I don't need it changed. Yes, I hear those people. And then there's just, this is just common sense, but it's one that I've told my kids about, and I've learned that I have to talk to my wife about more often, is that when you're driving and you see a light that comes on your dashboard, you should get that checked out quickly. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I'll get into one of their cars and I'll turn it on and there's a little light that's glowing there. And I'll say, how long has it been since that light started glowing? 2 months? It's driving fine, right? We have this sense that all these things, and if you don't do those things, they can seem really crazy, can't they? Like, I can't imagine drinking that much. I can't imagine getting that much sleep. That seems ridiculous and far out and just crazy that you would organize your life around those sorts of things. But what I've learned is that people who actually do some of those things, for them, they would say, it's not crazy at all. That's exactly how I live. And I can tell you the benefits of living that way. I can tell you the benefits of drinking that much water. I can tell you the benefits of eating a dozen eggs a day. I can tell you, maybe not that many. I can tell you the benefits of all these things. It makes total sense. And I just want to be honest this morning that what I'm suggesting, that we consider these 3 circles, gather, deepen, and go, as 3 ways of living, 3 organized and disciplined ways of organizing our lives. And my acknowledgement is that even as we get into this, some of us are going to say, that's crazy. You don't understand my life. You don't understand how I do things. You don't understand how busy I am. You don't understand that I don't have time to add anything else to my life. And all I want to say is I get that. I understand that. In many ways, this will sound crazy what we go through over the next 4 weeks. And for some of you, you might just say, that's just not where I'm at. But all I want to ask of you for the next 4 weeks is that you would consider the life that you want to live, the life that you ultimately, at the end of your life, will reflect back on and say, did I invest my time in the things that were the most important? Well, have I spent my time invested in the people, the things, the places that will ultimately reflect the goodness of God in my life? That's all my only question that I want you to reflect on. And I acknowledge that some of this will sound and feel crazy. But I also know that having talked to people that they've organized their lives around these sorts of disciplines and these sorts of activities, they give testimony. And we're going to hear a lot of testimonies over the next 4 weeks of how this has come to life in the lives of our congregation. But when we think it's crazy, but we begin to hear a story of transformation, we say, maybe it's not as crazy as I thought. And maybe I do need to adjust my life. Maybe I need to reorient it. Maybe I need to make some space for things that I haven't done yet that could help me to be more purposeful in my pursuit of God. Because that's the focus of this. If you're maybe unaware of why we gather, it's for one reason only. We are here because we believe that Jesus transforms our lives and that he is deserving of the central part of our formation, the central part of our attention, the central part of our motivation in how we live and why we live and what it does to us. This morning, I want to focus in the book of Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews is one of the most interesting books because we don't know the author. We don't really know even who the audience is. So we're kind of uncertain to a lot of the background to this book. But what we know is that the audience knew the Old Testament really well. They knew the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They knew the Psalms. They knew Jeremiah, which then seems that they probably had a very strong foundation of the entirety of what we would call the Old Testament. And the picture of the Old Testament for the writer of Hebrews was the framework that he or she was writing about to say, all of this from the Old Testament, all of the history that we're leading from and living from, has been fulfilled in Jesus, and in Jesus, he is greater than all that we thought we knew before. And so the writer would say, Jesus is more beautiful, more powerful, more central than angels. That's the first part of it, because the angels were thought to have given the 10 Commandments on the top of Mount Sinai, and there's different things there. We won't get into it, but the Jesus trumped the angels. And then Jesus even trumps Moses. If you're in Old Testament and you're aware of the Old Testament, you know that Abraham and Moses, these figures are key. And that Moses is central to what's going on. And to say that Moses is less than Jesus was to say something. That seems heretical. It seems over the top, but that's exactly what is said. And then there's this interesting passage around the priesthood, and Melchizedek is used. But what is at the bottom line is that the author says Jesus is the perfect priest. He's the perfect one to take who you are before God and find forgiveness and permanence in that forgiveness. And then lastly, Jesus is greater than any sacrifice. Because in the Old Testament, it was known that you had to keep bringing sacrifices over and over and over and over because you were never completely clean. And now in Jesus, there was no need for one more sacrifice because he was the perfect sacrifice. And so the writer develops these 4 categories and then just on each one of them stamps it and says, it's Jesus, it's Jesus, it's Jesus. It's Jesus. And if you're going to follow after God's will for your life, you will need to put in the center of all that you are, Jesus. Now that can seem like the Sunday school answer. It's Jesus. but it is. It is in the power of the resurrected Messiah who has forgiven the sin of the world, who has taken the penalty of sin upon himself, who has resurrected and now is at the right hand of the Father, living in authority and power. And all people who come to faith in God will see Jesus as the living Savior. And then if that's true, then all of life gets formed around that. And that's the importance of what we read. And so all of that has been laid out. We get all the way down into chapter 10, and we're going to read just 3 verses, 23, 24, and 25. And as you read these, I want you to realize all this has been laid out ahead of time. And now it's kind of brought down to, so what do we do together with this information? What is important for us to know in relationship to one another for this to remain central to us? And here's the other interesting piece, is this is written to the church who is undergoing persecution. And that's going to be really an important part of this, that people's lives are at stake for following Jesus. And the writer pens these words: "Let us hold tightly, without wavering, to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works, and let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." Why in the world, a couple thousand years later, would we reflect on those 3 verses and think that they have something to say to us? I think I can think of a number of reasons. The first is that we are not so different in the fact that we have forgotten the impact of community. And this is what the author of Hebrews does not want this group of people to forget. Now, I could understand if this group of people decided that in the context of an environment where they were being persecuted, of why they wouldn't want to get together, why they wouldn't want to show up in the same places, why they wouldn't want to turn any heads to their congregating, because if they did, it was the potential red light that would go off for the authorities to say, those people meeting together are Christians. And there's a problem if Christians are meeting together, and they could put their lives in danger. I would totally understand why they wouldn't want to be together. I get it, don't you? I mean, it makes total sense to me. But the author of Hebrews says, actually, whatever you think of a reason of why we shouldn't be together is of a detriment to the very formation of your hearts. And the writer would say, like in the midst of persecution, I am telling you, you need to be together. And I think, well, why in the world in 2025 would that message need to be told to us? Why would we need to hear that? Why do I need to hear that? Not to take us back into some really bad days, but you remember COVID days. And in those days, there were a lot of things that were put into the center of what was already happening under the surface. And one of those was that as a community of people, as a society of people, we were dying from isolation. Even in the midst, before COVID happened, there were reports after reports after reports that were saying people in Western cultures are finding themselves completely alone. They're living by themselves, maybe with pseudo community around them, but they are isolated and they are dying from the isolation that they're experiencing. And so I think whether it was persecution keeping people apart, whether it was all the different dynamics that have formed our culture and our society that keep us apart, whatever they are, this word is a word that we need to hear again with open ears and open hearts and say, God, what do you want this to look like? And is it possible that you really did create us for community with one another and with you to experience this life to be all that we can be? So there's just 3 things that I want us to look through today. Three things that I think are shown in this passage about what it is about community that's really important. The first one is that community provides an anchor. Why is that important? Well, the writer says, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Here's the truth. You and me, humanity, we are fickle, aren't we? We are distractible. We go after all kinds of things. You say, well, that seems a little, maybe I don't fit that. Okay, maybe you're the exception. But this has been true of the entire Bible story. If you've been around the meeting house, you know we've gone from Genesis all the way through. We finished up 1 Corinthians a couple weeks ago, or last week, sorry. And now we're into this, and we're going to eventually get into Revelation. But what we see over and over and over is that people eventually move away from the things that are holy. They move away from the things that God had said, you need to anchor yourself here in trust and faith and obedience, that there shouldn't be any other idols and there shouldn't be other ways of life that you're going after, other things other than this holiness of God. And over and over though, throughout the scriptures we watch people move away. And that's still our story. Our story, our temptation continually is the idea that we get kind of bored, or we get distracted, or we just might not be thinking about it very much, and all of a sudden we find ourselves drifting all over the place. And just from my own human experience, you can fill it in what yours looks like, I know that I am so distractible. I know that left on my own, I will begin to wander around looking for different meaning of life or different purposes or different things that seem to make sense. But the author of Hebrews says you've got to anchor yourself here because you have to hold tightly, because the winds of life are going to push you all over the place and you're going to want to move, but stand here anchored. In this anchoring, there is opportunity for you to discuss and deal with your concerns, to deal with your doubts, to deal with your fears, because you're held tight by a group of people that are helping you to stand firm on the things that you know are true, because God's promises are true. And when you stand there firm and rooted, and you have other people who are holding you up and bearing witness with you, you can remain anchored a whole lot easier than if you're all by yourself. When you're by yourself, you are susceptible to all kinds of movements. And so this anchoring was really, really important. The second one is that in community, our thinking and our living are lifted up. They're better than they could be by ourselves. Here's how the writer says it. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good work. Let us think of ways. Let us be creative. Let us join together and say, you know what? If we're followers of Jesus, what are some of the ways that we just help each other along this journey? What are the ways that we enact and empower the life that we've been given by God? My guess is that for all of us, our thinking, so I've noticed this, and sorry, this is a total aside, but I've noticed that the older you get, the more corny you can be. And it's okay. And I was remembering back, some of you, you're going, yes, I love that part of getting old. But I had a teacher in high school. He was one of my football coaches. He was a PE teacher, a guy that I deeply loved. But one of the things he would say when we were in class and somebody would make some stupid comment, or we would be in a football practice and somebody would say something, and he would say, that's stinking thinking. Is that corny enough? That's stinking thinking. The whole morning, that's the one thing you're going to remember. That's stinking thinking. But he would say this, and what I've learned to be true over time is that the reels that play in our heads can often be very detrimental for us to hold firm to the faith that God has given us. The stories we tell ourselves, the ways we process life, the things that go on in this little section between these ears is a really weird place. But what I've learned is that the more the stuff that happens in here has a context of people to talk it through with, the clearer I can become on the things that are actually true and the things that are stinking. The things that actually lead to life and the things that are reals, that are telling me something that is not true about who I am or who God is or my relationship to the world. And there is something so powerful that within community, our thinking is lifted higher than it would be by myself, because people around me are helping me to hold firm to the truths of who God is. The Apostle Paul says it like this in Philippians. He says, "Now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable." What goes on in here? Think about that stuff. Think about these things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me. Everything you heard from me and saw me doing, then the God of peace will be with you. What I have learned over my lifetime is that I am better because of so many of you in my life. I am better. I think better. I act better. I go after the things of God more diligently because of the influence of the people around me in this community here at TMH. I realize that left to myself, I would be content every day living with a very mediocre, a very dark picture of the world, a very hopeless reality to what's around me, being caught by the news cycles that are telling me all the horrible things that are happening. But what I need around me are people who see the hope of what God has declared is true in Jesus, that he is redeeming all things. I need people who hold me to that, to say, Bob, look around you, and what you see is not the finished product. God is restoring and making a better story than you can even see now. And if you hold firm to that, you get to be a participant in seeing the world transformed in the ways of God. That is absolutely vital to my existence. The last thing that we're going to look at today is that community provides a cheering section. Have you ever had people cheer for you? You know how awesome that is? And I don't mean that you need applause. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who believe in you, who see the best in you, who call out the best in you, who cheer for you because they want to see you succeed. You know how beautiful that is? Some of us know the beauty of that, and you know what it's like every day to have people around you that are in your corner cheering for you and calling out the best in you. And for some of us, we know the pain of what it is when we don't have that. We know the pain, and we would do anything to have people around us who saw that kind of picture in us. And they cheered us on and called us out, because we know what it's like to live with people who it feels like they're just pulling us down, and they criticize and they're just calling us out in the negative ways all the time. But something happens when we are followers of Jesus and this community of people come together, that the writer of Hebrews says, and don't let us neglect meeting together. Some people do that, but encourage one another, because this race that you're running matters. The race you're running to be faithful to what God has asked you to do, it matters. And I need people cheering me on, because not every day do I get up wanting to serve the Lord. Not every day do I get up wanting to serve people around me. Not every day do I get up and think, oh, God is doing amazing things around me. Not every day do I wake up with this smile on my face thinking, that is such a gift to live today. But I have people around me that I get these random texts from people that say, hey, I was praying this morning and I thought about you. I just want to tell you, have a great day because God is good. Hey, I want to tell you this morning, and I've already had about 5 of these this morning from different friends around the country who have written to me to say, Bob, I'm praying for you this morning as you preach. I pray you feel the Spirit of God in your midst. I cannot tell you how much that means to me, to know that I'm not alone and that there are people cheering me on. Oh, church, this is part of what we get to do, is cheer each other on. Now, I want you to see in just a second a video from our friend Stan. And Stan is able to capture the essence of what the writer of Hebrews was putting forth as he tells his story. And his story is a story that has really hard things in it. But the community of people around him helped to lift him, to hold him, and to give him hope to keep going. Take a look.
My name's Stan Beachy. I have been connected with the Meeting House back since 1977. We raised 3 children here in Carlisle. We have 8 grandchildren with 1 in heaven, and my 4th great-grandchild is on the way. Joyce and I met in Haiti in 1967. That was what many people would call a God wink. Within a few weeks, we knew that God wanted us to be together. We got married a year later, so we were married for 54 and a half years. Wonderful years, and what a beautiful woman she was. We always loved being involved in church. We taught Sunday school. The 2 of us were involved in marriage mentoring. I had sung in the choir here. Those things gradually, as Joyce's health declined, meant that we had to step away from those things. I do remember taking her in to Bible study and actually bringing a soft chair in from the narthex for her so that she could sit comfortably during Bible study. Joyce passed away in January of 2023, so it's been a little over 2.5 years that she's gone. When she passed away, there was a big adjustment because I had been caring for her 24/7. And having that suddenly removed left a bit of a void in my life. I was not able to be involved in community as much as I had before. And I didn't realize it at the time, but there was an emptiness there. There was a loneliness. And then my daughter, who has her master's degree in psychology, said, Dad, you really need to get into some kind of a grief group. I said, no, I don't need that. I'm a professional. I don't need that. She said, oh, yes, you do. So within about 6 weeks after she passed away, I joined the winter-spring session of Grief Share here at the church. Around the same time, Lowell Hassinger took me out for coffee, and he said, hey, there's a group of us old guys who get together for coffee and just fellowship. So I joined that. I decided I wanted to go back into the choir, and they accepted me with open arms. The ability of the community to pull me back in, just having the people of the church rally around me meant so much. There was a song that was sung at my grandson's funeral, Great is Thy Faithfulness. It was sung at Joyce's funeral, and I hope it will be sung at mine, because God is faithful. He will never leave you or forsake you. And that faithfulness has been so evident in the way He has brought people into my life over the years. And I know He's going to continue it.
Stan, thank you. Thanks for sharing that story with us. I am aware that a conversation like today, it's not a conversation, is it? It's a monologue. You're having to listen to me. That we can take all of this and say, you know what, I know that's probably good. I know that it's good for other people. I know that it was good for Stan, obviously. But Bob, what you don't know about my life is that I've got kids right now and they're just really busy. Bob, you don't know, I've tried this in the past and I've been hurt. I know the sting of community and it's been really painful. And I've just determined I'm out. I've got my 1 or 2 and that's enough. Bob, you don't understand, I'm an introvert. and people weird me out. I don't need them. Bob, you don't understand, I'm an extrovert, and I don't want to be really known. I really like skipping across the top of the pond with people because it's really where I'm comfortable. Bob, you don't get it because I just can't make space for that kind of thing. Honestly, I don't know that I want to make space for that kind of thing. And I'm not telling you this from a person that has it all right, because this is a journey. It's a journey for every single one of us. It's a journey that sometimes even has seasons to it. Seasons where community's easy and seasons when community seems completely foreign. But what I hope is that we keep talking about this. One thing that you might consider is that you will be better in community than you are outside of community. That you will be supported within community better than you will ever be able to be supported by yourself. And most importantly, is life was never meant to be lived outside of community. Your community is going to look different than mine. There may be more people in it, there may be less people in it. But what I am certain of is that as we talk about this and we look to the scriptures and we ask God, what is it that you're asking of me in this season of my life? That we might consider together what it looks like to be a congregation, the meeting house, in all of our places, with all of our people, with the diversity of who we are and the different ways and different experiences of life that we've all had, that you matter to this community. One of the great lies that I hear over and over and over and over throughout 26 years of ministry is no one will miss me if I'm not there. And what I've learned is that there's something that happens in our brain that we forget that when we gather, the thing we gather about, and this is certainly true of Sunday mornings, but it's also true of other groups when we're together with them, is that when we are together in community, we bring ourselves to bring worship to the Father. When we gather on Sunday mornings, if we bring our worship, it changes how we show up. If I come on a Sunday morning to consume and to take what I can get, I will always be lacking. But when I open my hands to you and you to me, and we together bring them to the Lord, and we say, God, here's what we have to bring to you. Here's what we have to offer. I offer you my skills and my gifts and my money and my time, and I'm gonna give this to you. Something changes in us. And that there's a commonality that we share together, knowing that we are image bearers of the Creator. And that when we come together in that way, there is something that is shaped and formed deep in who we are, and that I am not as good when I am not in community with all of you. And you with each other, and you with me, that together there's something, and I don't know what to call it. I don't know to call it magic. I don't know to call it. All I know is that something changes when I'm with you. And God's invitation for his community of followers is that we would not be alone, but that we would come together. And I know all the excuses out there, but at some point it takes a courageous moment for us to say, I'm not going to do this alone any longer. So, just as self-disclosure, because I don't want you to think that somehow this comes easy. Heather and I, we've lived here now for 7 years. And about a year ago, we were looking at each other going, you know what? We do a lot of things and we're around a lot of people. But if it were to be known, like how many people actually know me, how many people know the things that I deeply struggle with, how many people know the failure I feel, how many people know that kind of stuff, I'd say, well, very few, and I like it that way. But we looked at each other and we said, this is not good. We've got to figure this out. And you know this is one of those moments where I feel like we had to gut up some courage, and we had to write a letter, and we sent it to 9 people, and it basically said, we're friendless, will you be our friend? It might have said a little differently than that, but that's what it felt like. It actually felt like I was kind of like this. Like that's what it felt like. Because we were at a place where we knew we needed community, and it wasn't easily found for both of us together, and we sent this letter out to people, and I'll tell you, I felt so weird to send it out. But those 9 people graciously and kindly said, that sounds great. We would love to do that. For the last year, we've walked with this group of people, and I've cried more in that group of people than I thought I could. My heart has grown by hearing the stories of these people that I now treasure in this group that they're sharing the stuff of life. I'm going, wow, I had no idea. We share the celebrations, and when then something comes along that there's a deep need for God to intervene, we send a text quickly and everyone begins to pray. And I think, God, what a gift it has been to be in community, but my goodness, it hasn't come easy. And so I just share that, because if you're at a place of life and you say, well, community just is not gonna fit and it's not easy, you're right. It won't fit and it won't be easy. But I want you to consider that God might be inviting you into something new. And it might take one moment of courage for you to step out and just let it be known that you could use somebody walking alongside with you. In all of our campuses, over the next number of weeks, you're gonna see invitations for different things that are happening through the church that you can get involved with. Classes, groups, all kinds of things are happening. I'd encourage you, that's a great first step. If you don't have anywhere to go, you don't know what it's like, step into one of those. There's men's groups and women's groups and small groups and grief share. And I'm forgetting a ton of other, all kinds of things that are available and you can step into. But I'd also say, if you say, you know what, actually, I have a gift of hospitality and I'm feeling like I need to gather some people around me, I'd encourage you to just kind of write I need a friend note and invite some people. Because what I know is true is that God shows up when we are together, and he makes all of us better when we share life together. So God, I don't know what you want to do with the scripture that we've read this morning in each person's heart that is across the TMH family. I thank you for those that know the power and the gift of community, and I pray you give them energy to just keep investing and honoring and loving each other in the midst of that. And God, I want to pray for people that have been hurt in community. And I want to pray that you bring the healing that's needed there. That I know the pain and the scars we bear because of the ways we're treated and interact with others. Oh God, it is so difficult. But I pray that there would be such a healing that even if it's over time, and it will be, that those that have been hurt in the past will find places of life and community in the future. And Father, for some of us that have just not even realized or thought about this, and we're unaware of how much we're missing in this category of life, would you just open our heart a little bit? Would you give us a passion for this a little bit more than we had when we started today? And then would you begin in ways only you can do to mold and prepare and bring about those relationships that we need so that indeed we're not alone. God, it's my prayer that over the years, the Meeting House is a community of people who are a small community of people. That everyone has a place, everyone has a people, everyone has somewhere that they're known and somewhere that they know. And where we are not there yet, we pray for your wisdom, discernment, and courage to walk toward it. Thank you for Stan. Thank you for his life. And thank you for the hope that he brings us this morning through his story of your faithfulness in his life. We give you praise and thanks, and we look forward to whatever it is you might want to do in our hearts in the days ahead. Amen.